All right. Oh, me. It's been sorted. Excellent. Hello, and welcome to a video about my Rodan deck from Dallas. Um, I never did one for Vegas. That's okay. There's not much to say about my Vegas deck. I thought my Vegas deck was pretty bad. Um, uh, I got top eight. I think if you asked UGN, I got fifth, but I got top eight. The number doesn't matter. I played Rodan. This is the best deck in the format right now. Um, and there's one card that does it, and it's Bachelor Arrives. That card is not fair and is hopefully getting banned in like 2 weeks or whatever. But yeah, I wanted. There's two other Rodan decks to look at that both did better than mine. I think. I think personally, my game three against Nate was just kind of like bad luck. Turn two, I'm on the draw, and my read is that I have to pressure him early so that he's like kind of always stuck being on defense because Rodan doesn't put up a lot of damage early, especially when you have Bachelors for Science Bros and so on. So if I can chunk him early, even for like 7 HP, it matters a lot. And I go move on a 5, check a 3, move on a 6, check a 3, and then I die in the crackback. So, anyways, but yeah, I got top 8. I went undefeated in Swiss. I went round 1 by round 2. I put against Chris Smith on Zeke 1. I won 2-1. Round 3. Oh no, here it is. I don't remember. Oh, I feel stupid. What did I play against? Fuck. Oh my god, what did I play against? Um, I do not remember, and it might come back to me, or it might not. But round 4, I played against Peak. I won 2-0. Round 5, I played against Justin Birch on Zeke 1, and I won 1-0. Round 6, I played against Deku 6, and I won 2-0. And then I went ID, and I ended up second in Swiss. And I think mostly what I want to talk about is the realization I've come to with how I play Rodan. I've been playing this deck for like a year and a half. I started playing the deck about a month before Louisville because, for some context, I started playing this game with some of my local friends who there's only one other guy that really plays the game anymore. But when we all started playing, I had a friend who doesn't play the game at all anymore, but he was like the Rodan guy. He's like, I like this bird. This guy's so cool. And he's right. Rodan freaking rules. Um, but so for a long time, I was like, Rodan's really cool, but that's the Tristan deck. So I'm not going to play that. And I missed out on VME Firepower Rodan. Like, holy shit, broken ass card. Uh, and all that. And so during Louisville, I was like, you know what? I want to play the stupid Chungus Bird. I think I got like 35th. I was not as good a player as I am now after that event. And then I played it for Worlds. I think my Worlds deck was really good, and I just checked a lot of threes, got pretty unlucky. I played against Zeke 1, which I thought was a good matchup, but checked a lot of threes. Um, and so on. I talked about my Worlds run before, and you can watch that video if you want. And then I played it in Vegas, and I ended up 13th. Went 5-2, barely missed top 8. The cutoff for top 8 was like X11 was the bubble, and I ended up X2. So I wasn't in contention for it, but I was close. And this event, I did it. I topped my first UVS event. I'm very excited about that. That's so cool. I'm not ass. I promise. So I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to talk about every card in the deck. I'm going to talk about how I play the deck, and how, and some of the more interesting cards. So the main cards I want to talk about are, this is a card that I wasn't running for a little bit, and not everyone plays, but I think after this weekend, I'm convinced that you should be playing 4 copies. Fateful Decision. Mostly, honestly, for the mirror. It is a card that's, I think Fateful Decision is really crazy as like spam speed hate, but mostly only if you're able to use both modes effectively. It's very rare in a deck with no speed hate on face that isn't playing like a ton of speed hate spam, where you're going to be in a situation where you're like, I know I can block this move super easily, and I know I won't need to block anything else this turn. So I'm going to commit a foundation to mess up their build, maybe. It's like just Rodan that can do that, because your opponents that are playing like Anguirus or whatever, here's my 5 speed Queen of the Monsters. I'm going to Rodan, it's 2 speed, and you have no ways to give it speed. Well, I block with my +1 or whatever, my +2. I can give my block breaker 2 for free. And I can still block most of your moves anyways, and so on. And then in the mirror, when the main the mirror kind of has like 2 stages, where in the beginning you're fighting over speed, because on offense you have science burst triggers for an extra +1 speed, and on defense you have incubating for an extra -1. So it just kind of depends on draws and like who draws how many Batras. Can you use your Batras? Things like Megalomania is a huge difference maker. Um, so stuff, Fateful Decision and Errant Sidestep are cards that let you kind of cheat that game on defense, where you can say like, instead of like in addition to my incubatings and stuff, I can save the cards removed to use Fateful Decisions and so on. But yeah, this card is crazy. This card is crazy in this deck. I would highly recommend playing 4. I'm only maining 3 Armorclad, and I'm maining 4 Scales of Juno. I think Drew was maining 4 Scales of Juno. He was playing 94 cards. I think Nate was on 3 and 3. I went 3 and 4 because I think the only things I can think of that I really want Armorclad for are like big EX bombs, which kind of don't exist right now. The Throdex, which I'm maining for Mikasa defeats already, and Trigrav in the mirror, or any. There's a couple different cards that have Deadlock Stun X, and Trigrav is the big one, Deadlock Stun 3. And obviously, tension cards are good, but my read was mostly like, most modes of Roman Cancel don't matter against this deck. So the main scary one is purple, which is Scales of Juno cancels anyways. So yeah. Pressure by All for One. This card is crazy, and the first copy is almost certainly correct. It hits everything in the deck except Heat Tackle. And it won me multiple games. It's just so free. The worst part about it is, unironically, well, the worst part about it is the forecheck. But besides that, the worst part about it is the +1 mid block. Sometimes you get stuck with a +1 on top of your discard pile, and you get really sad. I think I was the only Rodan in top cuts on optimal form. I was on 4 for a while when I was on like 85 cards. There was an iteration of this deck that I was working on for this event that was like 85 cards. This is currently at 76. And it had 4 optimal form, 4 Batra, 3 Science Bros, 4 supersonic flights, and 2 airships. It had 17 3 diffs. And honestly, it felt fine. But when I cut cards down, I knew that 3 div, the feeling of it would bloat a lot. So I decided to cut 2 of these. My read on optimal form as a card is that you want to draw it early so you can use it to draw cards. But in this deck specifically, it's mostly just nice as like, it's another thing like what I was talking about with Fatal Decision, where extra minus speed helps in the mirror. Additionally, extra minus speed before you press any buttons helps in the mirror for stuff like if they use Mona Normalcy or Substitute Member to reset after you press Rodan, you are in a like real bad position. So this being able to like use your optimal form responses, and then if they pass, you just pass and block is very strong. When you get into those like grindier game states, like we saw in, I only got to watch Game 3 of Finals while I was at the event, but that Game 3 where you go super late. It also helps against like round 4 when I played against the peak player. Game 1, I built to 22 foundations, and I had both optimal forms and a whole bunch of shit. And he played 6 high moves that all had stun, and I blocked all of them. I took 0 damage. And a part of that was optimal form. And this is all with Peak giving them 3 speed. This is just optimal form is crazy. This card is when this card got revealed, I was like, this is my new favorite card, and it's probably true. We're gonna talk about Bachelor Reps really quick. This card is gonna get banned in 2 weeks. If it doesn't, I will find it really hard to justify not playing Rodan for Atlanta. This card is the reason this deck doesn't have any bad matchups right now. I think in a world where Batra is gone, Armor Might and Zeke 1 become much better matchups, become much worse matchups for Rodan, because in the Armor Might matchup, you're stuck at 10. You can't go into deadlock against Godzilla vs. Bio. That card is way too good against your deck. You will not beat it. Even one copy is so hard to beat when they get a really good string going, and 32 HP is a lot to chew through. And similarly, Zeke 1 gets to play that card and Dramatic Exit and Loyalty of a Friend. So it's real rough to beat that deck without Batra when the game goes super late, because there's kind of 2 games that you play against Zeke 1 with this deck. There's the one where you go first and your opponent builds a bunch of backups and you draw Animus shots and they don't have Filled with Doubts, and you get to sweep their board. And if you get them from, like, let's say they build 4 backups turn 1, or like 3 backups turn 1, if you get them back down to 0, it's so hard for them to rebuild, because you can just keep them on the back foot and go like if your turn 2 is Animus shot, move, kill all your backups, build 3, and you built 3 turn 1, and you can kind of keep up that pressure where you start to go like move, build 3, move, build 3, and so on, and just keep them down to 1 to 0 backup so they can never draw a bunch of cards and never flip. The game is almost impossible to lose, and eventually you'll be able to just punch them because you have nothing else to do. And the other type of game that you'll play against Zeke 1 is they'll transform, and then you kind of play this weird, really long game of footsies where this is from my perspective of the matches I played this weekend, where your opponent is trying to gauge how to best, because if they go in and they miss, it's not like the worst thing in the world, but it takes a couple turns to refill, so that you can feel like you're wasting a lot of time giving the Rodan player time to set up. And conversely, Zeke 1 has a lot of DR, especially repeatable DR. So you kind of have to play like 2 or 3 moves to even get something to relevant damage. Especially like Drew is playing Combination Salvo, and I think that card would be a great boon in the matchup. My typical way of killing Zeke 1s in these long games was to run them out of cards in hand. I would set up a string of like 10 attacks. I would be like Heat Tackle, Ice Sword, Airship something, Ice Sword again, and then like Trigrav, a bunch of King Ghidorah Unleashed, and you would hope that Pressure by All for One and Team Hero damage would get you there, and normally it does, because it's just all you have to do is eat through the like 2 to 3 cards in hand that they hold, and then through the DR they have on stage, which normally amounts to like, if you have Batra for the Loyalty of a Friend, it's like max maybe 12. So that's the matchup's quite interesting. Losing the die roll against Zeke 1 in general is ass, and does not change with this deck. But I think the other thing, I think if you wanted to play 22 attacks, my 22 attacks are correct. But I like Barlow played in he topped in Vegas and played a similar deck in this event. He's playing like Wingnut Sabotage, Dazzling Helm Blast. These are both cards I would be interested in playing. Drew's playing Combination Salvo. That's a card I would be interested in playing. Nate's playing Timely Counterattack. I was playing that and cut it pretty late last minute. Um, there's I mean the typical Rodan problem is there's 500 playables, and that's true of the attacks as well. I think my attacks are like the bare minimum. Drew is playing. He's playing a lot more cards, so like you can definitely get away with not playing Megalo and just saying I'll deck you out, which he did twice on stream to other people, and probably honestly probably would have done it to me too. Um, but and then I think the only other thing is like Disarming Glance in the sideboard is crazy. My sideboard I thought was really good. I sided in every card in my sideboard this weekend except for Power the Monsters. This was basically just there for Pony, which I did not play. Um, Pony kind of did not do fantastic this event, which, if you know me, you know I'm ecstatic about that. Um, but this was basically here to come in over the Genkais against the Pony players, and that was and like if I sat down against a deck I like a off meta deck and I was like, I guess Hero's Upbringing would be pretty good here. I would put Power of the Monsters in my deck. Let's see. So round 3 I played against George Zhang on Keyleth. Of course, that's what it was. So anyways, my read on how I like to play Rodan is I've learned, and I've said this before, but I've learned it's very true now, is that there's always a 5 on top of my deck, and if not, oh shit. Um, it's like I said, I lost my game to Nate game 3 because I went turn 2 on a 5 check a 3 on a 6 check a 3, and I was like, I guess I lose. I had 4 attacks and a bunch of like expensive foundations in my hand that were bad. I think it was like 2 supersonics or something. And I'm sitting there like, well, I guess I don't have anything else to do but punch him. And I went like Megalo Heat Tackle and checked 2 3s and then died on the crackback. But my read on the mirror is that it's hard to go over top without like getting luckier than your opponent in some ways. You can because like there's no way to predict whether your opponent is going to like play a move or just build past, so you can do a greedy like build 5 and hold your 2 best attacks, but if they play a move, you're almost certainly using a resource, which could set you up to get punished by them playing additional moves. Um, so the long game is very difficult to navigate, and my read was that being able to get like any HP advantage early matters a lot, because like if on turn 2 you hit them for 7, it's like the game is it's so much easier, because counting to 14 compared to 21 is like an entire attack less, and there are like late game you can block like 8 attacks and still have 2 cards available to block with. It's pretty crazy what this deck can get away with. And so that was, and I played this deck similarly at Worlds, where I'm like, I'll just check 5s on my moves, which this deck had a lot more 5 diffs at Worlds because we were playing Repeated and Rejuve as well. So it was the lows were a lot more detrimental, and I'm playing, I think we went up to 29% attacks, which I was also the highest of the 3 Rodans and Top Cut in terms of attack percentage. I think Nate was 27 and Drew was 24. And you might be like, well, if you want to just say I'll just check 5s, wouldn't you want lower attack percentage? And yes and no, because the thing is, I want 2 moves to be able to play on turn 3 or turn 2 rather. Like against George Zhang, all 3 games I put him to like 7 or less HP on turn 2, and it was just game 2 where I bricked on turn 3 and then couldn't get through the wall. He had built too much and drawn too many cards, as he is known to do. Um, and let's see. I think the only other thing I'd want to talk about are there's 2 cards that are not in this deck that I think I should have played. The first one is my beloved Inspired Design. I Deadlock against this deck is very important. And so I wanted something for Deadlock for the mirror. And originally, these disarming glances were ore strikes until like a day before the event. And I was like, hold on, I tried this in Louisville and it sucked. So I'm not gonna play ore strike. And coincidentally, getting to take out the ore strikes meant that my deck was actually max rarity, which made me very happy. But um, I didn't want to put any Deadlock foundations in my deck, especially like flip one. Inspired Design's not a flip one, but like, if there's like an undercover infiltration, the card is embarrassingly bad against Bachelor Rise. And Inspired Design I kind of felt like was the same way, but upon reconsidering, I was very wrong. I got too baited by Dies to Doomblade, which is something I say to people about Bachelor Arrives all the time. You just and I definitely I would have in if I could run back the event, I would cut the optimal forms for Inspired Designs, and I would because it's on both turns. It is a very powerful effect to have that normally warrants a Batra. Especially on your opponent's turn. If your opponent is going for a kill turn and you get to say every incubating and my character is an extra -2 speed, that's instant Batras. That's like it's just it's so strong. Um, or like if they play an Ice Sword, they have to Ice Sword the Inspired Design before anything else, unless you have like all 4 incubatings, and they don't have 4 incubatings. And the only other card I'm not playing that I would want to play going forward is Ruthless Guardian. I I played it in Vegas and I was like, wow, this card's really good. And going from the 85 card build to this build where I started at 74 and then added an attack and added the second airship, I cut Ruthless Guardian mostly because and this is going to sound really stupid, but I was like, I don't necessarily feel confident that I'm good enough at the game to use Ruthless Guardian. And I regret that a lot, mostly because I don't agree with that. I think that I definitely am good enough at the game to use Ruthless Guardian, and I I fully plan on playing that card a lot more in the future, if nothing else to like make up for it, because I want to play with that card more because it's so cool. And I know there's a good chance that it gets fucked with in some kind of like functional errata after this event, because there was a thing about Nate trying to snipe the Genkais out of Drew's hand with one, which by the way, he should have been allowed to do because that is what the card says and that is what the card does as written. I'm going to drink some cranberry juice. Very good. But like the stuff I was doing with it in the LCs leading up to Vegas and in Vegas, I was very proud of, because that card is just so freaking sweet. It is extremely easy to mess up with. Like, I think, and now I won't say this. I won't say this. But it's a very hard card to use correctly. But it is, if you only use it correctly, it is one of the strongest and best rate foundations in the game. Um, it's an incredibly powerful card. Uh, but I think that's about all I have to say for my Dallas deck. I definitely don't have as much to say about this one because I didn't record all the iterations. I will say, I guess we'll talk about how this deck got birthed. I had my like 85 card version that I was testing, and I was like, this deck feels like Rodan, because If you don't know, I was playing Reiner up until the ban list, and then they announced the ban list, and I'm like, shit, I can't play Reiner anymore. I have to figure out what deck to play. I don't have time to test anything else, so I'm going back to Rodan. And it worked out. But I had a list more similar to my Vegas one, and I played on the Monday stream, the CWC stream. I played against Paul on stream, and I got waxed by getting pretty unlucky. And I played against Jordan and Nate afterwards, and I think against Jordan, my game 3 was pretty rough, and my game 2, like I needed one low block, and I drew 3 high blocks in a row. So that was sad. In my deck with like good block zone spread. Like this is, I think the only difference was I had slightly more mids like comparatively. But it was a very similar spread here. Uh, so it was just like unfortunate. And against Nate, kind of just like a Rodan mirror just kind of went fine. But I did lose. I lost in 3, and I was like, man, I feel terrible about this deck. I really want to play something else, but I don't know what else to play because I haven't practiced anything. If you're in David Cord or the CDOC server, you probably saw me crashing out about like, what do I play instead of Rodan? My deck sucks. And I cut like 10 cards from my list, and because I was tired of like not drawing the good ones, because despite the fact you can build a 400 card Rodan deck and have all the cards be good, incubating Science Bros, Bachelor Arrives, Animus Shot are still like some of the best cards in your deck. Um, so, and I changed my attacks around a lot. I cut the timely counterattacks. I added in heat tackles and megalomanias I wasn't playing. I changed it around a lot, and ended up there. And I kind of was just like, I'm stressing out about this so hard that I have to just stop thinking. And then I showed up on Friday, played in teams, won my first 3 matches, and then lost 2 matches in a row. And I was right back to like, oh my god, this deck sucks. I want to pivot. I want to play something else, but I didn't bring any other decks. And then I had a good time hanging out with my friends, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to show up and play Universes tomorrow. And I did pretty well in Swiss, so it all worked out. Um, but yeah, this has been my Rodan deck profile. If you have any interest in talking about Rodan in a post Tekken world or just in general, I love talking about this deck. I think Rodan it's such a cool deck because it's so like you can, and I talked about this in my Worlds video, is that everyone has opinions on how you should build Rodan and how you should play Rodan, and everyone is wrong and right at the same time. Like, Drew would probably tell you that playing an attack on turn 2 is probably wrong in most matchups, when I would be like, I want to jam 2 attacks on turn 2 every game. So, it's just, it's all this, he's so cool, man. Universe's rules. UFS is too damn good. Uh, but yeah, if you want to yap about Rodan in any of the discords at Jet Jaguar, or DM me, or you can comment. I'm terrible at replying to the comments on my videos, as you may have noticed when I posted my last video and then was like, comment your thing, and then I didn't reply to people. So, but you can comment, and I might read it eventually. Um, but yeah. This was my Rodan deck. I think it was pretty good. Um, I think this is probably the first time I played Rodan where I can't confidently say I think I had the best Rodan deck. I think Louisville. I think Louisville I had the best Rodan deck and I wasn't good enough to pilot it. And I think Worlds I had the best Rodan deck and I got very unlucky. Oh no, my Vegas Rodan deck was actively bad. My deck was like actively full of bad cards. But this deck, I think I can't say it's like the best Rodan deck, but I can say it's the best Rodan deck for me. Aside from the couple changes I mentioned, I was incredibly happy with this deck. Um, but yeah, that's my deck. Thank you for watching.